folks, we are live. Can we get a video and sound check, please?
Check one, check one. 1, 2, 1, 2. Uh, how's the sound doing, like, folks? I think Brian says it's like cool, man. Anyhow, so we survived another week. The most important thing last week, um,
Oh, yeah.
what?
Heartbreaking reports from the family. Willis can no longer speak.
What? What?
He got dementia a while back. He went down. Now
Oh,
he's
well,
yeah.
better to go fast. Anyhow, so the big thing last week was the wedding reception. Um, Eva's youngest son got married, what, 16 months ago or something?
Yeah, he'll be nothing.
In Korea. He's active duty. His wife is Canadian, and he's currently stationed in Germany. And they arranged, and I thought it was very nice, they arranged the reception for here in Helena so that Eva wouldn't have to travel. She had one family traveling over from British Columbia. She had her family's pretty much in Calgary, Alberta, which is about 6 hours from here. So it wasn't a bad location from Central. Anyhow, but for the last several days, we've had Eva's sons and her daughter-in-law and other people here, etc. The the reception went very well on Friday. There was some complications, screw-ups, etc. beforehand. About a month or so ago, the original venue canceled, and they needed a little help with the flower arrangement because FTD doesn't apparently have anybody in Helena. It's Helena. Eva did a great job finding a good venue. There was a lady here that raises flowers herself. She sells them at the farmer's market. Ran into her there. Got a crap load of flowers. Made all the arrangements. Everything went very well. There was a bunch of kids there, and that kind of cheers things up. So all in all, it went great. So that's good. But we didn't have any time to do anything else really this week because of that. And Eva's sons just left today, so it's time to get back to work. In the meantime, we've been doing a little bit of long distance consulting for the Central American project. The picture, the thumbnail, was that's the pit that they're working from currently. They're not open pit mining, they're tunneling in and basically tunneling along the high grade right now. My personal guess is that just looking at the ground, the colors, and this and that and the other without a closer examination and assaying, my guess is virtually all of that brightly colored stuff would be profitable to heap leach. That might be very challenging in this area simply because the rainy season is, in fact, the rainy season. It doesn't just come sprinkling down and get the occasional thunderstorm. They get heavy rains and the occasional hurricane. So that would create challenges for heap leaching. Anyhow, that's well down the road. The particular reason they called was they wanted my opinion on a particular batch they ran through and see if I could figure out what I thought was going on. And I have diagrammed this situation on the board. You want to switch the board, little one?
Yeah.
Okay. That is it legible? Can people read that?
Can people read that? I can read it, but I don't know if y'all can.
Well, if you can, they probably can because they're going full screen probably. Anyhow, so this is kind of the diagram of the system that they're using at the moment.
Just name each thing.
I will. Start out, gold in. They did take a sample. They have a good idea of what the weight was. So we have a good idea how much gold, what?
Audit the Fed. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Got Pheasant. Audit.
Fine. So we have a good idea how much gold went into the ball mill because we know the grade and the tonnage to within a reasonable level of accuracy. Out the ball mill is a screen. The undersize goes to the tables. For some reason, which I am not familiar with, they did not sample that stream. Now, they sampled the stream of the oversize. So we have a number here. This is what was perplexing, is this was running a higher grade than into the ball mill. There's a variety of possibilities there. If you had, like, the gold is concentrated in quartz, some other more refractory mineral, then as you're milling it, the softer stuff grinds up quicker and easier. That oversized tends to be a little bit rich. In the long run, all of this is going to get recycled until it goes through that screen. So, not a critical number. I say this number really is fairly meaningless anyway, because it's all going back to recycle and we have no weight. So we don't know what we have a grade. It's richer than that. Kind of interesting, but not terribly useful. They didn't sample the grade going out of the ball mill to the tables. They didn't sample the tailings, middlings, or the concentrate as such. On the other hand, the concentrates, all of the concentrates, number one con, are getting collected and then retabled. Okay? So that's not terribly important anyhow, because that's going to wind up right down here and be split into three things again. They didn't sample these tailings. They didn't sample these sulfides. And the gold that they sucked off, they suck it off, then they pan it. The high gold concentrate goes to melting, roasting, and the sulfides from this process currently are being melted and, roasted and melted. And typically, this would be about 1.5. Okay? Sorry. Point. It's typically been running kind of like half of what that is. So, yeah, the sulfides have a lot. We have more free gold than gold in sulfides, I believe. Because even though the sulfides are very high grade, there's not a whole lot of them. This amount right here is in the neighborhood of 5 to 10 pounds per day. That's all. Whereas tailings here, this is in the neighborhood of 10 to 20 tons per day. Okay. So much lower grade gets a huge multiplier effect. That's what, a 2,000 to 1 difference in terms of weight. So we really need to know what that is. We also need to know what's in the depleted sulfides. Don't know at this point. I made it, I was very emphatic that we really need to get the sampling going well. Okay? We really have no idea what's going on. Most importantly for me, one thing I really want to know right now is what's happening here. How much gold are we losing in the ball mill? If you take a look at this, 0.3, 0.15, we're getting 0.45x, i.e. over half the gold is going somewhere else, not being recovered. Okay. Hey, Rock, how's it going? Wow, an 8-hour drive, huh? Yeah, you drive safe. Thanks for the help this week, Rock. Um, they haven't figured out how to get me the samples yet, but I'm sure they will. Just have to focus on it for a little bit. Anyhow, half the gold is going somewhere. We don't know where. It could be here. It could be here. It could be here. I don't know. You know? So I explained to that rather emphatically. Don't take the samples. We don't know what's going on. Uh, and so I think we got them on the right track now. Also I sent them a form so they basically fill in the blanks. You know, take those samples, send them off. It's really, really important. So that's what's going on right now. A whole pile of question marks. Okay. Don't know exactly what's up. Um, no, Rock. They did clean out the spiral classifier and found a lot of gold. They found that they can clean it out fairly readily. Right now, the coarse oversize from the output screen, they're throwing it into the spiral classifier simply because they're using it as a conveyor. That's it. But he says they can clean that out in about a half hour, 45 minutes. And they do that like once a week to keep it from building up too much. However, I did, again, emphatically state, without knowing this difference, you have no idea how much is in there, but one can presume with a relative degree of confidence that that is a not insignificant number. Half the gold's going somewhere. Almost all of it could be getting trapped in the ball mill. Hard to tell. We have kind of a mishmash of a sample from this batch and a sample from that batch. We got 2 of these samples and 3 of those samples and a couple of these samples. And yeah, it's a mess. They're never from the same batch. So again, I told them, they came by 3 months ago. I told them we needed that at a high priority. Should have been done within a month. At least if they had one, count them, one complete set of samples that had been sent to a lab, at least we'd have an estimate of what was going on. Right now, we can't even do that. We can't even guess because we just have no clue. This could be a big one. That's the other one I think is a big one. I don't think sulfides are that big. I think it might be 20% of the total. Okay. But I don't think it's the majority of the remainder. I think it's probably a lot of it's there and some of it's there. Don't know which, where, how, or why. Okay. But that's the situation we've got right now. They have promised me that by the end of the week we will have some complete sets of samples with some results. The laboratory itself only has a 1-day turnaround time, which, Rock, I'm sure you would love to have when you're normally working at stuff. That would be great. So that's the current state of affairs there. Okay. These sulfides here and potentially these sulfides here are what I experiment on roasting and doing a thiosulfate leach with. Okay. So they're working hard, and Rock was, we were trying to brainstorm it just a little bit as to how to get me a substantial number of this stuff. It shouldn't be hard. The guys from DHL said, nope, they couldn't send it. That's all we know at this. You got to work a little harder on this.
Yeah.
Okay.
As to well, the 1 day turnaround, it depends. I mean, if they are actually just a larger mining company, wow.
No, it's actually an internet. 1 day turnaround is not that bad. I mean, there's some transit time that's not involved in that, but yeah, exactly. If you have a big backlog of stuff, then it can take a while. But the actual process, as Rock says, it doesn't take that long. It just has to be done. So, not a huge problem. Just like with Hiddle, we get our results in about a week, but it's like 2 or 3 days to get there, and then a day or two of prep or whatever. He takes his time, but he's not slacking off, and then he gets it done, does the calculations, and sends it back. So it's, hey, they've got theoretically a good setup there. They just actually have to do it. It's very easy to get distracted because there's something big like that screen right there. It needs, 4 holes in it. Things weren't working, so they had to recover it. Okay, that's fine. But when you're running, it doesn't take that much time to get a complete set of samples. Okay? You just have to do it. And it takes a bit of discipline because there's lots of stuff happening. There's lots of real interesting stuff happening. There's lots of moving stuff happening. There's lots of big stuff happening. You just can't let that distract you. You've got to focus getting those samples, and these are all being taken by hand at this, where on a regular basis, somebody goes around and actually takes a scoop, dumps it into a bucket, goes over and takes another scoop of another stream, puts it in a bucket like that. Then at the end of the day, they have these samples which can be split down. No, David, they cannot. They can clean out the spiral classifier in, he says, 30 to 45 minutes. Cleaning out the ball mill would take a day or two. Okay? It's not the sort of thing you can do on a regular, easily. So, you could do it once a month or something like that without too much trouble. Once a week would really cut your production down. Okay? So, that ball mill is a huge potential trap that we have no idea. They've gotten a sample going in, a sample coming out, even just once, where they took 1 day, got these 2 samples. We'd have a pretty good idea of whether it's a minor issue, a major issue, or a huge issue. We simply is a we don't know. So that's the situation there. Right now they're sending me equipment. I'm getting a duplicate set of equipment to what they have to do their smelting with and everything. They're trying to get me a pretty good size sample of these sulfides. I'm asking for 50 pounds, Rock. Put it in a steel bucket, ship me 50 pounds. That's what I'd like to get started with, because that would allow me to do a lot of testing.
Yeah.
I could dry that out, blend it, split it, and do some serious testing. One thing I'm planning on doing, presumptively everything's going to be roasted before it's all over anyhow. But I'm going to be doing some bottle rolls before roasting, bottle roll after roasting with the Eco Goldex, and I'm going to be testing with thiourea instead of Eco Goldex. Thiosulfate. There's a thio there. I get confused. No, you are correct. But anyhow, to see what the relative kinetics, the speed of leaching is.
Apparently, San Francisco has gotten bad enough that human pork is looking like a ghost.
We need to get it done, David. Price isn't the major problem.
The major problem is getting the stuff out of the country.
Yeah, it's a matter of just getting it done. Not sure what the problem is, but gotta move. I mean, if you got to send 10 5-pound packages, I don't care. Get them up here. You know, in that case, send me 10 or 15 pounds right now, and then send me 10 or 15 pounds of next week's, and like that. You know. We did. In other words, where would you? Let me see, Mr. Parker there. Well, I presume Mr. Parker, but anyhow, Parker K. What about rhodium? I know that the big labs can do that. I do not know if Hiddle does. I suspect not. For something that odd, you're probably going to have to go to a big one like ALS Global or ACT Labs or one of the big boys. That's my guess. I know on our particular stuff, we had it tested for platinum group because we saw some silver things there. We weren't sure what they were. It was probably electrum, but either that or might have been some arsenal pyrite or a telluride. Kind of hard to tell, but anyhow, we Brian says Hazen. Where's Hazen at? Is that in Denver there, Brian? But anyhow, we checked for platinum group, below detection limits on everything. So, okay, fine. It was something else. But generally for platinum group, it's going to be a big lab. I'm not too worried about sulfides because it's real easy to roast them. We don't have arsenic, mercury, things like that. So it's real easy to just roast it. Once you've roasted it, now it's amenable to solutions. I'm going to be testing too to see once I've roasted it whether or not we got a lot of gravity gold again now. Easy enough to do. Might as well try it out. See what happens. My basic plan is to start with, I'm just going to use a cast iron pan over a big burner. Keep heating it and stirring it until it's thoroughly roasted, and then I'll take it and use a disposable blender. By disposable, I mean just go buy a cheap one down at the thrift store. Put some water in it, put the stuff in there, blenderize that stuff instead of worrying about a grinder. It should be soft enough that it should blend pretty good. Yeah, I'm not able to do that kind of analysis. Okay. Again, you'd have to, if you want to just send me some samples for me to hand pan and take a look at, you can certainly do so. Do you have my post office box. Oh yeah, there's a lot of these companies that do that. They had one over there in Tucson that did that kind of stuff for a while, and then the environmental regulations shut them down. They were too close to a school, and they couldn't use this fire assay because there's a small amount of mercury in the exhaust. Blah blah blah. So they just shut down. But they used to do that too. They would test various processes to see how well it worked. I'm gonna have to turn on that swamp cooler, little one.
Every time it
I
triggers.
know. I don't know. It's somewhere not a very good contact.
And
You
you
know?
want me to take it off that and put it back on
Yeah,
you?
sure. Go ahead and put it back on. Okay, go ahead and type in my PO box.
Uh, I'm typing in the P.O. box if anybody wants to send rocks.
And I don't see Sarah, but I haven't had a chance to grind up her rocks anyhow. So she would have been mad at me anyhow. My plan is just grind all the stuff she sent me into one batch because a pretty small sample that way, but then I can pan it and see what I find. So, um, that's
There you go.
kind of the plan.
Yeah, the swamp ain't gonna work for crap right now. We're at 100% humidity.
Work a lot better than nothing. We have an evaporative cooler,
Yeah.
which Eva is correct. It's going to be running at pretty low efficiency right at the moment. But I can certainly feel it's cooler than it was a minute ago. Nothing else, just bringing in the outside air.
You're welcome, Kay.
So, anyhow, that's the next stage. Now, this part here, we could use thiosulfate, use Eco Goldex, we could use glycine. There's a number of possibilities.
That's interesting.
I'm looking at the thiosulfate as the primary one right now because I believe that this chemistry here is the one that's most amenable to scaling up the 2,000 times to run those tailings up there. Okay? If it works good on this, chemistry probably not going to have problems in the rock. And a thiosulfate leach on a tank or on a pad, it's kind of like known technology. The glycine is interesting, but if it was like on a pad, Brian, I'm wondering how much in the way of insects and birds and rodents and stuff like that are going to be going after your leach solution.
Yeah, that's the big worry.
So I say that's my concern about the glycine. In terms of its actual effectiveness, it may work out just fine. It's certainly low toxicity, but environmentally, are you going to be just setting up a magnet for critters
Yeah, I
to
mean,
come
you
in?
might
And
have to have a fully contained tank.
how do you keep insects out? I mean, a tank you can, but unless it's 100% like an actual covered tank, yeah, you're going to have a tough time.
I mean, I'm thinking you'd have to have an actual.
Yeah, you'd have to have covered tank, I would think. We can do some testing, but that's my concern about it. That's why I'm looking at thiosulfate as the primary thing. With the kind of concentrations we anticipate finding in these sulfides, which is, well, I calculated it one time, and I think it was these right here. It was running like 4 grams of gold per pound of sulfides before roasting.
Well, wait, slave. We don't necessarily. There's a couple of problems with massive amounts of insects. I mean, first of all, we live in a part of the world where there are lots of pollinators being, moved around.
Hello, John.
Made my own forge, but I'm melting. I'm having trouble with gold and platinum turning into alloy. How do I get it? Well, first of all, it may or may not be platinum. If it's platinum, it's melting at a very high temperature.
Well, if it's platinum, yeah, it's a silver. It easily alloys with gold. How do you know it's platinum?
Yeah.
Okay. As opposed to silver, because yeah, the methods are going to be radically different depending on. Okay. So let me know on that one.
Yeah, because most of your white metals melt at a far higher temperature than silver does, or lead.
All the platinum.
Silver or lead. So unless your furnace is getting up significantly over gold,
well, it's hard to tell. With alloys, things are different.
Yeah, that's true, but
typically an alloy will melt at a lower temperature than either of the components.
But it should be noted that, like according to my book, when it comes to assays where platinum may be present, it'll be skating around on top of the bead, not alloy.
Doesn't alloy well? Okay.
No.
Say, if it's silver, it's relatively easy to separate. If it's actually platinum, you'd probably have to do selective electroplating. You're going to have to use a aqua regia sort of digestion.
The very first, well, that would not be my first test weight claim. Aqua regia is really nasty stuff sometimes. What I would do is, Parker, if you make a bead of this stuff and you pound it really thin, and then put it in some dilute warm nitric acid, if it's silver, the silver will go away. It'll turn into silver nitrate. And what's left there is gold. So if gold and any platinum group metals. So if you then take that debris and turn it into another bead, and your bead is any color but deep butter yellow, there's something else in there.
Yeah.
Because there are circumstances where platinum group metals can be affected by and can dissolve in aqua.
Yeah. As you know, Wage Slave has the idea if you use standard aqua regia at room temperature, platinum is kind of resistant, so it'll dissolve the gold first, so it'll turn it kind of silvery.
Yeah.
In terms of alloys get weakened it's not that alloys get weakened, it's that the atoms can't stick together to them, when the different size atoms and stuff, they just can't form a lattice as easily. That's why you have like solder is tin and lead. Normal thing, sometimes you got silver in there, and it melts at a lower temperature than either tin or lead.
To take a look at the most common thing here, your collector metal is lead. Lead melts at a very low temperature. It melts at about 1650, 1700, whereas silver melts at like 1763 or higher, and gold is up there at like 19. But when you've got all three of them in your crucible, with when you've got all three of them in a button that you're then cupelling.
Hold on a second. And Kay, have you tried cupelling this alloy that you've gotten? Because even if you had lead or zinc, or tin, it's going to make an alloy that looks kind of white.
Yeah. If you want to get exact, white gold is gold, silver, and usually some nickel.
Okay.
If we're talking standard white gold, though it can be made with platinum.
Yeah, nickel's pretty high temperature too.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, nickel, it depends on when your white gold was made. If you're looking at jewelry, are we talking about jewelry or are we talking about ore? Because jewelry, that's an entirely different thing there. And white gold, depending on when it was made, may or may not have platinum in it.
But anyhow, so if you've cupelled it and it's still white in color, that it can easily be electrum, which is an alloy of simply gold and silver. If you have platinum group in there, little hard. If Eva was saying beat it into a thin layer to dissolve it, and that's to because when you've got an alloy of gold and silver, as you start dissolving the silver, the surface tends to become more resistant to further dissolving.
Bonsoir, Jean-Francois. Comment allez-vous? And yes, you are correct. Ammon and Hoax books did, in fact, I believe, describe that sequence.
So, I say, if it's silver, you're going to see it, turn to a more gold surface when it's digesting in nitric. But there's a couple different things to check.
You can, in fact, make white gold from 14 karat gold and palladium. What comes into the making of white gold is strictly the economic consideration. For instance, in my grandmother's day, platinum was basically considered a junk metal of sorts. So a lot of the white gold from the 1920s and 1930s isn't actually even gold at all. A good amount of it is actually platinum. Platinum with a little bit of gold, or it's the majority platinum. Then you look into, say, the 40s, 50s, when and during the 40s, during the war year, nickel was an extremely valuable war metal, silver was not. So you saw a lot of white gold that was made with silver because it was far less expensive than platinum or palladium.
Okay, now just a second, let me get a couple things. Like a sponge cupellation, a cupel is made typically out of bone ash. I believe it can be made out of aluminum oxide, also, little one.
Magnesium.
Magnesium oxide.
Magnesium cupels are magnesium.
But you can make a cheap cupel out of any refractory container, like a standard crucible, and just fill it with Portland cement. Mm-hmm. And that will work like a cupel without a problem. If you don't have cupels, you can make that, and it will work just as well for rough stuff. It's not...
I will say, as a caveat here, if you do end up using the Portland cement before you use that cupel, you want to heat it to about 1400 degrees or so and keep it there for a while to drive off any moisture, because Portland cement tends to be a higher moisture content than your typical cupel, and it can cause spitting in your metal as your metal is liquefying and driving. You get spitting, and yes, you do in fact get purple gold by using.
Okay, and Kay, as you notice, John Faber just said if you're using aqua regia, you can precipitate with ferrous sulfide, and it will only drop the gold. I'm not familiar with that, but
I have actually seen that reaction discussed on Reddit.
Okay.
Yes, indeed, it was Jean-Francois, but that was back in the day.
A platinum dish was common labware once upon
a time.
Wow.
High melting temperature. Very much.
Pretty unreactive. Yep.
Yeah, pretty much a noble metal.
Yeah.
Quite a true noble metal. Yeah. But like my grandmother's engagement ring that looks like white gold, if you read it, it's 18 karat platinum.
Wow. Okay. So, anyhow, as you can see, there's more than one way to skin a bead.
Well, Kay, if you ever decide you want to send some of that to us, I can run a few tests on it and tell you more about it. I can't do any fancy testing, but I can rule out a lot of things.
If you don't figure it out here fairly quick, you can probably send it to you'd have to call first, but you could probably send it to either, uh, gosh, Chris Christopherson in Idaho or Hiddle over there in Colorado. And, you can discuss with them what kind of tests they can do, but they could do that. Statistically, you're more likely to be looking at a gold silver alloy than a gold platinum alloy. Platinum is not that common, and it tends to be concentrated by different processes than gold and silver are.
Am I correct in thinking in most cases it's deposited in different ways, not just concentrated? It doesn't just
I meant
form.
in the rock itself.
Yeah,
yes,
it doesn't just form different deposits.
Yeah, it concentrates the same in the placer situation.
Yeah.
But I meant from the thing, because platinum generally concentrates out of a melt. You'll have like the boulder batholith underneath this here is 70 mile magma intrusion. After it's put in there, the platinum, because of very high melting temperature, they tend to solidify, and then they just settle to the bottom of the chamber.
All right, he's trying to avoid aqua regia. Good idea.
Yeah.
I use nitric acid generally in situations like this because you're far more likely, odds wise, you're far more likely to run into silver as a white metal running around. Let me qualify this. If you are not mining a base metal deposit, okay, if you're mining a gold mine, not a tin mine, not nickel and all that shit, not copper, mining
You're
a
welcome,
gold
David.
mine, you're far more likely to run into silver than you are to run into platinum group metal. And nitric acid makes silver nitrate very easily, and then it's very easy to get the silver back out.
And another thing, I'm not sure if you're aware, Kay, if you expose your bead to the nitric acid and, it changes color, but then you take that acid that you've used to try and digest it, and then put a little bit of salt, chlorine bleach, hydrochloric acid, whatever. Silver will form a white precipitate instantaneously.
Looks like cottage cheese.
Yeah. So anyhow, there's various ways, but that's not our major area of expertise.
Hi, honey bunny.
Hello, honey bunny. So, I say that's not our focus. We just kind of run into this stuff. But as you can see, a number of other people here have got good ideas too. That's the nice thing with the Monday evening chat, okay? As you can ask a question, and there's a lot of knowledgeable people here. Another thing I would like to bring up too is the importance of keeping records. The gentleman down in Central America, if you look at that picture that was the thumbnail, there's a pit. Now that pit was dug in 2 phases. What you're seeing is after the second phase where they pushed back the high wall some. And they were wondering if I could figure out how much tonnage they had moved in order to push back that high wall. Now, assuming they get me some numbers.
Sodium bisulfite.
I've never tried that, Kay. Don't know. But had they simply
write down everything.
A daily log. You should keep a log at your mine, not just your lab notes and stuff, but an actual log. Because it'll be, first of all, everything will be in one spot, but it'll also be kind of condensed. And what they could have been doing was, how many trucks did we haul today? You know, if there was a simple tally they could do, they'd
Hi,
have a
Red
pretty
Wing.
darn good
Hi, Resort Dog.
they would have had a pretty good idea of how much tonnage they had moved. Now we're going to have a less precise number because there's no way we can measure what they moved with high precision. They didn't do a high resolution survey of the mine before and the mine after. So going to be hard to do. Now they do have devices that can do that nowadays. They have lidars that can literally scan a surface and form a three-dimensional model with high reliability and quite easily, fully automatic. They use these nowadays a lot to monitor the high walls for movement. When they had that big giant high wall slide in Bingham Canyon a couple of years ago, nobody got hurt.
Day they say reclamation on US. Ooh, yeah.
Okay.
And that's going to hurt a little bit when it happens.
So, but their monitoring system detected that movement long before it collapsed. So they were able to avoid any injuries, and they mitigated the damage. But anyhow, so keep a log. I mean, same thing as a ship's log. What happened of any significance today? You know, you may not have to keep track of who worked how many hours, although there's nothing wrong with that.
Ooh.
But we ran so many tons of this kind of ore through the mill today, you know, et cetera, et cetera. Really? Rock. Now, the high-res imaging, how do they calculate the three-dimensional surface? Are they doing that by stereoscopic comparison of the images, or are they doing it more like a LiDAR or something like that? Refuge, not refuge. Yeah, never close. I agree. That that can cause a problem. Absolutely. But yeah, keep a daily logbook. It can come in very, very handy. Okay, stereoscopically, huh? Cool. Modern technology. Yeah. Sweet. LiDAR is and not only that, but it'll also penetrate the shrubbery a lot better, I would think. You're going to get a much better image of the Earth surface because it's looking through the shrubs. But so that's another thing that they would like to have a number, and it's going to take a bit of effort to come up with an approximation, unfortunately. But as I say, they just had a production log, you know, a daily work log sort of thing. They could have just gone back through it, said this many trucks this day, this many, you know, just add them up. Would have been quite easy. So let's see what else.
It does, but if there are shrubs on your ore stockpile, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah. So another issue that came up is they're now getting to the point where they're wondering how to integrate more into the community. I mean, these gringos are from away. That's a New England term.
Anybody who has ever lived in a small town or in flyover country or in New England, Maine, wherever, understands from away.
You know, so they're from
And
away,
yes, wage slave.
and so they were looking to, for possible ways they could help integrate more into the community. One thing I suggested was, what kind of health care do they have there? It's a very small town. What kind of clinic do you have? It's a very, very small and rudimentary one. So I suggested that they might want to talk to the clinic and see if there was equipment, supplies, something that the operators of the clinic think would be highly useful to have, not horribly expensive, but beyond their budget, and that could be obtained so that they could improve the health care for the community. I mean, certainly to me, if my children are safer, my family's safer, I'm going to be happy to the person who did that. So that was one thing I was thinking. And another suggestion would be to, talk to the local priest, whatever. Local authorities may or may not be a good idea, like the equivalent of the mayor or whatever.
Yeah, depends on where you are as to whether.
And depends on whether they're on your side or not.
Yeah.
But it's good to have an advocate that has some respect or authority within the community.
Well, it's a good thing you've got first responders resort, dog. Being out in the middle of nowhere, it's like that.
Yeah. So, that's also when you're working in a third world country, the local politics can become very, very important.
Yeah, that great idea, Rock.
Yeah, I say that, and that's what I was thinking is, I suspect that there's probably, because a very small clinic, there's probably something that clinic could use that they don't have that isn't horribly expensive. It might be something you need to get from the United States.
Now, this is interesting.
Something they could just put in their luggage.
Apparently, a study came out that wearing sunglasses in the sun makes you burn easier. Because if you put them on before you go into the sun, your body thinks you're indoors and doesn't produce as much melanin. The UV light striking your eyes is the signal for your skin to ramp up melanin production.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
So they recommend that you don't put on your sunglasses when you get right outside.
Yeah.
Wait, and
another thing I suggested might be beneficial. They have like a bi-weekly supply run they use for the mine to go get parts and stuff. And they, I know that when we were in Atlanta, Idaho, working there, the postal person, the letter carrier.
I didn't say I necessarily believed it, Rock Resort Dog. I said that it was a study that was out there.
Okay.
A little bit bizarre.
And he was actually kind of a supply run doer too. You would, if you needed some groceries from town, from Boise, which was about 100 miles away by way of the dirt road, what you do is tie a shirt to the tree at the campsite. When he's driving by, he sees it, he'll pull in. You give him a list of stuff that you want. And the next day, you go by the grocery store first, pick up all this for everybody, come by our campsite, drop off our stuff with the bill, and add $5 for his service. And he was probably doing that for 20 different camps per day. So,
No idea. Well, actually, Kay, as far as I know, Michael Jackson went and bleached his skin to even it out because he supposedly had vitiligo, which is a
vitiligo.
vitiligo, which,
Not very noticeable on my hand. But anyhow,
where you get those white spots. And he wanted to even himself out, so he bleached himself.
yeah. So another thing he could do to integrate to the local community is just make it known that, we're doing a twice weekly supply run and do a similar sort of thing there.
Yeah, but don't charge him.
You know, no, you still got to charge them for the stuff. Otherwise, they just bleed you dry.
Well, yeah, you charge him for the stuff.
And you want to charge a service fee, but it doesn't have to be very much. You know. So, as I say, these are just various things I thought of that might make the population more reluctant to do anything to send them on their merry way,
Hi, Shane.
Shane.
How goes it?
So, again, that those were things I was thinking of for the local politics stuff. Keto current burn mode. Huh. Okay, let's see.
Yeah, I'd seldom use sunscreen, Jean Francois. I use some on the most tender part of my ears. But as a general rule, I don't have to use a whole lot.
Yeah, I'm generally using sunscreen now. So I also generally wear thin long sleeve shirts, light
Well,
in color.
you need to, because every single time you go to the dermatologist, they got to stuff off you.
But yeah, I should probably set up another point with them too.
Waiting for bone ash crucibles. Good idea.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I want to get myself some reasonable materials and a Q-Pel press and make myself some Q-Pels.
So I think that's about the status stuff.
Yeah, there really is not much going on right now because,
Well, we got to get stuff in. We got to get samples.
Right now,
we're going out this weekend again.
Yeah, and right now we've got a whole tank that's got to be dumped. We
got a tank to be dumped. We got a pump to replace. We got the impact mill to put new wear parts in.
Yeah, I think we'll end up going out there after your party for a while.
That's kind of late in the end.
Well, we'll
have to see what the weather is too. But yeah, we got a little bit of work out there to do. We've also this weekend we'll be heading out in the field again, and we shall see. I think the
well, there are antique Q-Pel presses around, honey bunny. They make Q-Pel presses. They made them back in the 20s that were not hydraulic.
I have heard that the grizzly bear populations are continuing to increase.
Yeah.
Which is undesirable.
I mean, I would absolutely love to make my own pills.
So, that's it.
Yeah, according to the old folks, according to the old timers, Wade Slave, sheep bones were the best, made the best bone action.
I'm just wondering how fun it was to get that kind of a temperature in a furnace back then, Rock.
Yeah.
That must have been.
I would love to do a lot more study about what was going on in ancient Egypt.
I would think bellows and charcoal would be what they were using.
They pretty much invented it.
All that we know of.
Yeah.
Somebody else might have. We just haven't tasted stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, and somebody brought up the pre-thing that a lot of earthquakes going on. And I tend to say
Everywhere.
yes. They just had a 7.4 off of Kamchatka. And they have getting more. You're welcome, Kay. The axial seamount off of Oregon is looking more and more likely to erupt.
Good question, Rock.
Can't
So
be,
what I am the most interested in is the references you see here and there to using fermented camel pee and other forms of fermented urine to basically leach. Now I'm thinking what they were doing there was some form of urea. I don't know, but I would really like to play with fermented animal.
yeah. And they've got a big earthquake swarm in terms of numbers going on in the very southern Japanese islands between these little ones.
There was that one big earthquake on track.
Yeah, I just mentioned that about 3 minutes ago.
Yeah, that I think is interesting.
Well, I don't know.
Some people agree it's been going on.
Yeah, I think that's the most interesting one right
That's
now.
the one that's most likely to kill a whole lot of people. Stuff going on
Yeah,
right now.
Gabby Gray is getting stuff. What have I got here?
Yeah. Well, wage slave,
Hey, Bonnie.
I got a plan for collecting animals.
Why don't you take over for
I actually have a plan for collecting the livestock piece.
live stream night?
This is it. Collecting the livestock pea is just, it's more a logistical challenge than anything else. The fermentation is the part that I'm trying to figure out because I want to ferment it and denature it so that I can test a few things here, you know. But my thought was the easiest way to collect it is at the watering holes where the range cattle congregate on the way out to one of our mine sites, Montana Beach. Because, yeah, there's a whole lot of pee around there. There's a lot of poo around there, too. And I'm pretty sure that might be very useful shit. Most people don't realize that urine was actually a commercial commodity up until like the last couple of hundred years. So there is that. You know. But when it comes to the earthquakes, I would say that the most likely one to kill a whole lot of people is if that earthquake swarm at Campi Flegrei becomes a real issue and we get an eruption over there. And well, my thought, honey bunny, my thought on the issue was I want to try several different things to ferment it in because I have a suspicion that it may react differently with different fermentation vessels. So you may get a different end product if, for instance, you fermented it in a wooden barrel as opposed to fermenting it in a carved stone trough or fermenting it in something else. I mean, I have often wondered about that. That's something I want to test as a little bit of a side note there because, yeah, I mean, urine used to be a commercial commodity for many things. It's a dye fixative. It's used in leather tanning to make various things like phosphorus, various forms of fertilizer. It's been used in bleaching, elixiviant for bleaching ore. I mean, Egypt had a huge copper mine. I'm betting that's probably what they were primarily using it for. But it's just something, you know, and in one of these days when I have in my non-existent spare time, we will be playing around with that idea. Because heaven knows, we got enough cows in the state. I should be able to find some peter ferment around somewhere. And speaking of metals, in case anybody's interested in what's going on in the metal department, Gold on the world market right now is at $3,392.70. Silver's at $38.84. So still on sale, people. Just say it. And platinum's at $14.43, palladium's at $12.58, and rhodium is at $57.75. So the goddess is sticking by her prediction that we're going to settle in at a new practical floor for gold that's around $34.50 by the end of the summer, beginning of fall. We're going to settle in at a new practical silver floor. We're already at a practical silver floor of 35. I think our new practical silver floor may go up to 37.50 or even 38, which would really, really make me happy because that puts silver right on the edge of a major breakout. We all know the gold silver ratio right now is still way, way worse than it should be. Yes, $38.84 silver. It's still on sale. And the goddess is very, very annoyed that I am unable to back up the truck right now because certain people have been too fond of giving away all of their hard-earned knowledge for free. And it's like, dude, when we're not working 5-6 days a week, we really need to make sure we got money coming so I can get it turned into silver. Oh, and in other random financial news, Scott Bessent, who's our Treasury Secretary or some such nonsense, has joined the call with Rand Paul and a few other people saying that there needs to be a front to back, end to end, deep examination of the Federal Reserve and the Treasury and how all those systems intertwine. In other words, the dude wants to audit. That would be lovely. I would really love to see some heads roll in that regard. And you know that if we audit the Fed, we're going to find out all kinds of crazy, crazy shit. And speaking of revaluating gold, Jean-Francois, another thing is happening slowly, quietly, and behind the scenes, especially when it comes to silver. Now that the price is going up, well, this relates to my 40% Kennedy. I have told all y'all before, there are sleepers in the silver world. Sleeper number one is 40% Kennedy half dollars, 1965 to 1969. Sleeper number two, older commemorative silver dollars, like the Ellis Island silver dollar that came out on the 100th anniversary of all that shit. Yeah, Mr. Virtue, Besant wants to look at everything. Fascinating, huh? Well, the thing is, an interesting thing is beginning to happen behind the scenes in the retail market. Every time the price of silver goes up, we see a lot of people decide to take profit. Like somebody who's got Gramps' old stash of Kennedy half dollars, 40 Kennedy. Or they've got their Uncle Pete's old stash of vintage rounds that he picked up in the mid-'80s out in California during the heyday of the California private mint, when there were 200 private mints or more operating in the state of California, and we saw that outpouring of beautiful rounds of all kinds. And silver trade units, world trade units, international trade units, all that stuff was going on. Well, you get a whole lot of people that want to buy the big bars, 10-ounce bar, the 100-ounce bar, the kilo bar, the kilo coin. And so every time we get this surge of sales of things like my 40 Kennedy, the recyclers and the refiners get a surge of unpopular material that goes to them to be melted down to be resold as stamped bars because it's, if you take a whole pile of vintage rounds, they're all 3/9 fine. Everybody knows they're 3/9 fine. You melt them down, you sell a 3/9 fine bar to somebody that's going to make new buffalo rounds. Oh, goody. As if we didn't already have 19 trillion buffalo rounds. Really now. But yeah, this is what happens. It happens in part because people don't recognize, say, an old Constitution round or an old silver trade unit. People don't recognize that as easily as they recognize a buffalo round. Everybody recognizes a goddamn buffalo round, okay? And people like silver that looks new and shiny and looks like it's standard. They don't like strange shit they don't recognize. So right now, the recyclers are seeing a greatly increased flow and influx of older silver, 93/9 fine, headed straight to become bars. They're also seeing an influx of old sterling silver flatware, antique flatware, antique tea kettles, antique letter openers. And because the mint okayed it to a few refiners, a lot of 40% Kennedys are going for melt right now. That is where we have the sleeper value. Oh, and also Ellis Island. The Ellis Island dollars are beginning to clear out of circulation. So we can take as an example here. Very recently, we discussed the fact that there was a brand new Fabergé found. Okay. One of the missing Fabergés was found, and it was found by accident, and it was saved from being melted just because the guy didn't get offered a good enough melt price for the amount of gold. Okay. And it had been sitting on a kitchen shelf in flyover country on a farm for a gajillion years. So there's that. Well, around the same time, somebody found a true one of a kind. One of Paul Revere's earliest pieces of sterling silver. A Paul Revere sterling silver teapot. A one of a kind item because a lot of that shit people either thought was fake or a reproduction or they didn't think it was that valuable and it got melted down the last time there was a big surge in the value of silver during that Hunt Brothers silver squeeze thing where silver hit $50 an ounce. Remember what else happened during that? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Prior to that event, Morgan silver dollars were everywhere. Even the Carson City Morgan silver dollars were not all that valuable. But during that event, our mint decided they were going to liquidate most of our silver strategic stockpile. That stockpile was made up of piles and piles of Morgan dollars. So those Morgan silver dollars went zipping off to refiners. They got melted down. Here, forever. So right now, we really don't know. Even the most common years of Morgan, we really don't know how many are left. We do know a whole hell of a lot of Carson cities are not left. Now, I will say, the mint at least was not entirely insane when they did this. Because in part, they took some of those Carson City dollars and some of the prettier dollars from the lower mint years of the other mint. And, hi, Jimmy. And they packaged them up and they sold them at auction through GSA, Government Services, which is where I got my uncirculated Carson dollar in its nice, pretty box. And those went poof like that. Those were sold so fast. The rest got melted down. We have no idea how many millions of ounces got melted down that may well have been extremely valuable. Nobody kept track of which years and which mints got melted down. So we have no idea how many are left. Okay? All that to say, we are coming into another period of time. Oh, and that is why the assay rounds you see running around, the assay office rounds, are in fact a sleeper. Because we do know that Continental Coin bought about 12 million ounces, maybe, more or less, during that great meltdown. And they turned it into the rounds that say U.S. Assay Office made from the strategic silver stockpile because they wanted to capitalize on that specific gem of history. So the goddess always loves those. Okay. But we are coming into another period of time where this is happening. Silver is now 38.84. The goddess is pretty darn sure silver may close above 40 this month. It may stay above 40 for a while. So, what's going on with the 40% Kennedy? My local guy will sell them to me for melt. He sells them to me for what he is getting for them. The melt value of the silver when he sends them to the refinery. The only reason that he's selling them to me for that price is because that way he doesn't have to pay shipping and then get reimbursed and all that crap. No. And he knows that I'm one of the 7 people I know of in town that will back up the truck on those things all day long. But we don't know how many are left. One of these fine days, when the latest run-up and the great meltdown, as Bunny just called it, is over, when the dust settles, we may find out that there are not that many left at all. Things that right now may be extraordinarily common, like Ellis Island dollars and 40% Kennedys, may end up having a serious numismatic. No, these fire sales were back during the Hunt brothers. When was that, Bear? That was 1983, 84, somewhere in there, Jean-Francois. The Hunt brothers got together and they tried to corner the physical silver market, and all of a sudden silver was up at $50. You couldn't find it anywhere for love nor money. And so the United States Mint decided to melt down all of our beauties. There's actually very little silver iodide used when they see clouds wage life. It does not take that much to see a lot of clouds. But anyway, so this is the time to keep that in mind. When you get the chance to buy vintage rounds, when you get the chance to buy your 40% Kennedys at melt, your older commemorative silver dollars, the Ellis Island dollars that everybody fucking hates. Whenever you can buy those kind of things at or near melt, do it and sit on them. Because I would pretty much bet the farm that we will see the same thing happen 10 years down the road that we saw happen with the Morgan dollars. All of a sudden, somebody will turn around and say, hey, wait a minute. Thanks to the government melting down half of the shit, now all of a sudden, the same Carson City Morgan that I paid $350, $360 for last year is right now worth $390. It was originally sold at that GSA auction for $14. Same thing's going to happen. Bear, are you coming back to talk to these people? At any rate, silver and gold are still on sale, and remember, if you don't hold it, you don't own it. So you better start moving that paper money into actual silver and gold, the physical stuff. Because you want to have the physical stuff. Now, my younger son has some paper gold, some ETFs, which is like, well, okay, whatever. But yeah, you want physical stuff. Oh, and we're going to see a bottleneck in the price of beef again here real shortly. It's not going to be looking pretty for a while. But he's coming back now. Bye-bye, guys.
Ugh. Let's see. Anyhow, So,
yeah, we're going to have interesting.
life is getting interesting. Um, anyhow, by the way, Bonnie had not heard what Tulsi Gabbard announced.
Of course not. Nobody hears this kind of shit.
She'd heard about the Epstein thing, but not about Tulsi Gabbard. Which is what I kind of thought would happen. So, this is basically our situation now. Have no idea how things are going down there. Well, I have an idea. They're making money. They're in the black. They're not near catastrophic collapse. Okay, fine. That's good. Got a lot of improvement to do. Don't know exactly where, how, or what. Okay? Because too little data. Remember, keep a daily log. Take samples. Keep a notebook or a file of all the samples. So you can refer back to them. Okay? And so that's important. We're going to be back out in the field this weekend. And hopefully within a week or two, I'll be working on the testing of the sulfides from Central America.
It may well be true. Hunter Biden's talking about running for president, supposedly. I'm hoping that's a deep fake. That would really.
Wage slave, that may be a better investment, but
if they would stay bought.
Yeah.
Ours are not good ones. Ours don't stay bought.
Yep.
I'm not gonna give them my hard-earned fiat that I could turn into real money if they're not gonna stay bought. True that.
Yep. But anyhow, so that's kind of where we're headed. And see how it all goes. We got some sampling to do this weekend. Do you have any idea what the weather's like going to be this weekend?
Yeah.
You can look it up. I'm just kind of curious.
Okay, Friday, 5% chance of rain, 90 degrees. Saturday, 31% chance of rain, 6 degrees. Sunday, 41% down.
Okay. So basically, fairly warm thunderstorm. Okay. So, anyhow, hopefully that doesn't cause us issues. Figure out what's going on. Because the fact that the power is coming off of that outlet, but the lights are losing power here, I might check the circuit breaker. Might have to talk to you over the phone and switch the thing on and off. So, anyhow, that's about the situation. Does anyone have any subjects or questions at this point? Is it easy to extract silver from a solar panel? Where is the silver used in the solar panel? Any idea?
Well, from what I have read about the issue, you spread the stuff up and inject it, either acid or inject it on nitrogen.
You're not gonna ash silicon cells.
Honey says you grind and leach.
Okay. Okay. Sounds reasonable. Any other questions, subjects, suggestions? I'm getting the feeling that the electric car craze is winding down now.
Good night, Rock Butcher.
You take care, Rock. Drive safe. Get a good night's rest. Yeah, I suspect that the electric car craze has reached peak uh, with current technology. If we start building a lot of nuclear power plants and somebody comes up with better batteries, and better charges, it maybe, you know, and there's got possibility. But as what is it, M Guy Australia always likes to point out, if you're going to charge a car in 5 minutes, you're going to need a megawatt charger basically to do it. Because just going to put that much energy in a battery, you have to start with more than that much energy. It might be relatively efficient process, but a megawatt hour is a megawatt hour sort of thing, Self-igniting rolling coffins. Yeah, and self-securing coffins too. That one I don't like a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of uses for rare earths. Electric cars is one of them. I think rare earths themselves are not terribly hard to find. There's a good deposit they're working on over here. But it's the processing that's more of the critical stuff. First you got to concentrate it from the ore, and then you got to convert it into a usable product. So that takes a lot of stuff. Yeah, I love hydropower. I like lakes. I can understand some cases where it's like, well, do we really need a lake there? I can see questions about Lake Powell. A lot of it simply because how much water is supposed to come into into that river every year. Do we really need that storage capacity? I don't know. So anyhow, um, just follow the math. That's all I ask. Do the damn math. you know? So, anything else, anybody? I missed 30. Say, any questions, any subject, anything? A journeyman operator from PG&E and PPL Power Generation Company. Yeah, it works. One third the price, 4 times the life, 10 times the capacity, recharge in 10 minutes. If true, it will be an energy revolution and recyclable. Well, that would be good. Still have to get the power. We still have to build uh, nuclear plants to charge them. But flakes of white and a very fine sediment usage. Is this a problem you have seen? I don't think we've seen much sedimentation that I mean, the thiourea solution we're using in our stripping circuit is pretty concentrated, and when it cools down, we get a substantial amount of crystallization. Okay, so uh, one could say, yeah, there is some precipitate, but it seems to be simply the thiourea plus. We're obviously dissolve. We're getting some iron in there, stuff like that. So um, if you chill it down some and then heat it up, does it redissolve? Ours does. We haven't spent the kind of money to analyze exactly what's in the solution once we put it in use. So that is a question that we have not answered because the person funding it all isn't terribly interested in pure research. They very much he just wants the applied research. How do I get this to happen? And that's it. I tend to get get distracted here and there. It's like, oh, why did that happen? You know, I mean, I know that in our case, the amount of crystallization pretty much has to be just it becomes super saturated. And I'm not exactly sure what it's super saturated with, but I'm pretty sure thiourea is the main thing. So, but we haven't done a thorough analysis of exactly what's going on. Again, you know, finances and the interest have not coincided. Hopefully, with the new guys wanting some research for their stuff, they seem more interested in being more thorough, and I think I've demonstrated to them why it's so thorough. Now, had we got a really good operating mine, if we'd had a good ore body to where we were making a significant amount of gold and the mill was, we were just trying to crank stuff out, then I think he would have been perfectly happy diverting a little bit of money to do more side research. But since we weren't able to find a good ore body, a nice profitable ore body, then that just never came to fruition. Anyone else? By the way, John, how's it going? You getting good stripping? If I recall right, you were stripping your resin. Uh, honey, you need to be a money bunny, a money honey bunny, a honey money bunny. That would be cool. When the river's being the floating gold of the salt water, it sinks right there. It's not so much actually the gold is not as dense compared to the water as it is in fresh water. When you get the salt water, it'll tend to be a little more buoyant. But it's when the currents slow down, let it settle. Okay. Cool, honey bunny. So anyhow, that's basically how it's looking at the present time. And see how it progresses from here. But you know, my health is doing good. He was doing reasonable, and we'll just keep plugging along, learning stuff and doing stuff until we can't plug along anymore. What Eva wants to do is cast little uh, mole statuettes where each one is the right size so that you have a gram molecular weight of that particular metal, which is called a mole. So a mole of silver, which would also be a mole statuette made of silver that weighed the same as a mole. I think that's a cute little pun. I really like that idea. You'd have to make different size little statues. But yeah, I think that would be cool. Buy a mold of gold or a mold of silver. I can. I like that kind of fun. Anything else out there? Anyone got any questions, subjects, or anything? Problems? And just, if I might, I don't want any necessary details or whatever, but how many people are aware of the rather significant announcement that Tulsi Gabbard made this
Hi,
weekend?
Jimmy. Yeah, Bear needs to read your first message. Hold
Well,
on.
what is it?
I'm looking.
Oh, maybe he could retype it. I don't know. What was it? It's kind of hard to do it that way. There's a gazillion things. Hi, guys. Going.
Going after Sam. Going after.
They've talked to me about something, but I don't recall about going after any samples or anything. So, well, she supposedly released a lot of documents. That seems to be more believable than most other stuff. But it seems like the media is not doing much reporting on what one would think was a relatively significant stories.
Well, apparently some of our senators are now talking about passing legislation to tie her hands on how things can be declassified, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and like 200,000 MLK files.
That's good. Good. So, what is it, Jimmy? What would you like to discuss, or do you need some help with something? What's up? I think they're posted on the internet right now, honey bunny. I'm not sure, but I think they are.
I know the MLK stuff.
Yeah, I agree. Demand proof. But I was just finding it interesting that it's hasn't been that widely reported. One would think that magnitude of a story from that open and significant a source
56
would be
years and
widely
one day
reported.
ago, Americans walked on.
You know, but
By the
it
way.
isn't there. To me, that's an interesting datum in and of itself. You know, I again, I'm studying the system. Yes, I agree. Not a bunch of redactions, this, that, and the other. Yeah, good, solid, and the original files, etc. Um, that's what I want to see. Absolutely. Uh, we have a lot of people who are very skeptical about government, about big business, about um, media, and the only way to gain any credibility
Swept
is,
over Oregon waterfall. One dead in.
well, that's undesirable.
Search enters a third day along the river.
Absolutely, resort dog.
Yay!
Yep, we're going back this weekend to get some more samples, Jimmy. Um, we need to be a lot more thorough, but we just kind of ran out of time last trip.
Fetterman pushing legislation to make it easier to use. Yeah,
Yeah, it's kind of hard to say what's going to happen, but it seems to be going up, and I don't see any reason for that to change. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this works. I was just simply commenting on the reporting of it. So could everyone kind of just chime in of like, yes, I've seen it, or no, I haven't?
Oh, wow.
Well, that would be great, Resort Dog. The new anime about mineralogy. I think I saw that. You might have sent it to me, Honey Bunny. Okay, Brian. And you're relatively well informed, I believe. Not seen. David Villa. This is amazing, isn't it, little one? You're
Yeah.
going down after samples. I'm not going into the shaft. I'm going to be rappelling above it and maybe digging right next to it to try and get some. It's still way too unstable, and there's no way to stabilize that quickly and easily. Missed that. Okay. Well, let me quickly state what she announced Friday, I believe it was. She said that, yeah, it's all over Fox News, but that's it.
Yeah.
I can see the bottom of it, Brian. It's only about 15 feet deep. I need to get samples. But anyhow, Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, said that she had uncovered, reviewed, and declassified documents that demonstrate that Barack Obama, James Clapper, Susan, a bunch of other people in December of 2016, when the intelligence community said, no, they didn't do anything to the election. Obama said, I don't like that. I want you to invent me the intelligence to say that they did so that we can go after Trump. Okay? Tulsi Gabbard, the current director of national intelligence, called it, quote, a treasonous conspiracy. Okay? Now, you see why it's interesting to me. She did that on Friday. It's been Saturday, Sunday. Now we're at the end of Monday. And yeah, it's not going to work too well. I can get a lot. It's just whatever's sloughed in from above. I'll just rappel up above and down, and I can get a bulk sample real easy that way, Wage Slave.
I would love to be able to hike up there with a shop vac. The problem is, it's a 15-degree grade hill. You're climbing over dead trees. There's no path, and we're going to need to pop our way along, you know. So, yeah.
Not really, Mr. Virtue. I suppose I could. Actually, it's more a seditious conspiracy if you want to get technical, Brian. Treason has to do with aid and comfort to the enemy.
Yeah,
and they weren't.
Is more
they were trying to overthrow the president of the United States, not working for Russia per se or something, or China, you know. But yeah, I would call it a seditious conspiracy myself. But nevertheless, one would think that someone of that stature, i.e., National Security Advisor or Director of National Security, Tulsi Gabbard, former Democrat and stuff, making that, I wouldn't necessarily call it incendiary, but dramatic acclaim, would be like front page news everywhere. No. Interesting. Interesting.
There are very few Democrat politicians that are talking about that or saying A, debunked, and B, a lie. A couple of Republicans are now talking about our floating legislation in the Senate now to restrict the ability of the executive branch declassified,
Uh-huh.
which is a bunch of BS.
Well, that's because they're afraid of what could be
Oh, and
declassified.
apparently Martin Luther King's family is a little worried about the 230,000 documents.
Well, he wasn't an angel.
They're upset about that.
Who was Obama working for which ideologues? I think it's the basically the progressive cabal in the United States. There's no indication it was primarily external to the United States, like say the Chinese, something like that. I suspect it has a lot to do with they were concerned Trump would mess up the gravy train. Yeah, I would have called it a seditious conspiracy, Mr. Virtue. She called it a treasonous conspiracy. I presume that's because she was looking for the emotional content, but I
or
agree.
Maybe he actually was colluding to help an Indian.
Possibly.
Well, of course, no politician alive is a good, honest person. No honest person gets into politics and eat.
I'm sure there's some city council members in small towns somewhere.
Well, yeah, but once you get above,
see, that's my guess, Honey Bunny. They had too much at risk, both financially and legally. That they don't want to wind up in jail or whatever. They didn't want anyone messing up the gravy train, so they just needed to get Trump out of the way. That's my idea. But I don't know. There's no indication of any direct external links, like say there is with Biden. You got a lot of links with China and Biden, with Ukraine and Biden, stuff like that.
So illegals who were never on Medicaid have suddenly now lost access.
Oh,
I wonder how that works.
What a shame.
If you were never on it to begin with.
Yep.
How access?
Well, that's different.
Hopefully they may just be talking about it.
Yeah, it's probably ERs. Yeah.
Well, that was Reagan's fault.
I'm not arguing.
St. Ronnie did that.
Reagan wasn't perfect. All indications are the U.S. was in on the vacation. There were people in the U.S. Yep, I agree. And that needs to come out too. And don't tell me there's nothing there. Where did Epstein get his billions? There are bank records.
I still want to know how Epstein, who had no teaching credentials and no particular experience, got a job teaching math at a very expensive private school. That's my question. Yeah, and then they fired him for unknown reasons, but he was immediately hired as a private tutor for the son of Bear Stearns and got a job he was totally not
necessarily government corruption. People do shit between people all the time. That doesn't mean there's something legal we need to do.
I think the CIA was...
Could be. Wouldn't surprise me a bit.
Yeah, that's right.
Really, Resort Dog. He said that Reagan campaigned for governor down the street from him.
Oh, sorry. That man screwed up several things that really should not have been screwed up.
Yeah, I say, and the way that was announced, that there's nothing there, to me, it couldn't have been done better to try and hurt Trump. It's my opinion that Pam Bondi is doing a very poor job and needs to be fired, and somebody better put in there to replace her. But there's a number of reasons for it. It's not just this ridiculous debacle, and that's her department, Justice Department, and that's her responsibility. Somebody needs. If she's not going to fire anybody, then evidently she doesn't think it was done that bad.
Oh, if we're talking about Blondie.
Yep. Pam Blondie. Yep.
Uh-huh.
So, I say, it's some interesting times. I think that's good for metal prices in general. And it'll be interesting to see.
If the increase in metals prices instead of increase in gold prices
Mhm.
by a reasonable amount, we could see genuine breakout.
I hear the Mopel is available.
Muppet.
Moppet. Not sure who. So, as I say, interesting times, and it it appears to me that Trump is making mistakes. I hope that's because he's being misinformed and he gets better information. I hope that's not his judgment is slipping. We shall see what we shall see.
Oh, trust me, if he starts heading toward 25th Amendment territory, they will have him out of that seat faster than your head.
Then got JD.
Well, actually, I think it was their oh, yeah, that Moppet.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, we have no particular use for that Moppet. That woman is ridiculous. She put out her tell-all book, and it's like, you got.
I agree completely, honey bunny.
Well, we're not really right now.
So, let's say it's too dangerous a situation to be running around with bad information.
Well, are we about ready here?
I think so. And I think we're pretty much just talking
Oh, James
current
Comey
events
released
now.
a video whining about his daughter.
Oh well. Ron D. Ron. Sure.
Ron DeSantis.
Oh. I don't know.
I don't like the people who donate to him.
Yeah, I don't think he's got the kind of record of uncorruptibility and stuff.
I will say that I'm side-eyeing J.D. Vance about a few things. I'm going to keep a close eye on him.
Ted Cruz is a very good speaker, but
the man's a crooked used car salesman.
I don't think he's trustworthy in a pinch. He's perfectly willing to do what's going to help him to do, but he's not willing to tear down the system if that's going to be dangerous or counterproductive to him, in my opinion.
Oh, Ted Cruz is like a couple of other big names over there that are really good at talking when they know nothing's going to happen.
Oh, I agree, honey bunny. Some people are less corruptible than others. Some are just flags in the wind. They'll just blow whichever the way the wind is. They're very pretty flags. They look nice, but they're not willing to stand up against anything. Other people have a lot more backbone. They're rare, especially in the national level.
Yeah, that's true.
And again, I think the key is to look for people who have gone against the grain because it fits with their philosophy or their moral. And you say, at least I know where this person stands. I understand, honey bunny. Right now, we need somebody who's willing to kind of take a fire hose to the stables and clean out the mess. But it's a job that you don't do once. It's something that you have to keep doing.
Well, anyway.
Agreed, honey bunny. Consider who their opponents were. I agree, Resort Dog. Lesser of two evils is a real thing.
Oh yeah.
Anyhow, again, get ready to go, Honey Bunny. Any questions? Any subjects?
Yeah, let's talk about mining.
I think we pretty
Hello.
well talked it out.
Well, if we pretty well talked it out, then I guess we
That's
call it
why
a
I
night.
asked. Yeah, it's a pain in the ass, Honey Bunny, and you gotta keep a good mechanic on hand on a regular basis, and that's the problem. You know, keeping a good mechanic employed because they you keep changing
Interesting.
them and they vary in quality. Okay, going twice. Any subjects or questions? Seeing none,
Oh,
I'll go along with Honey Bunny. Happy prospecting. Keep it safe out there. We'll create content as fast as we do content.
oh.
Oh man, that sucks, Resort Dog.
Yeah.
Was it considered an artifact now? I don't know. They did the fossil thing too, which I wasn't too happy about.
Well, I
I
think we
presume
can
they
get
think it's the
that
same thing.
reversed. Well, good night, everyone.